Hi, Kwe, Naknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. So we're in not a new location, just a new setup, really. I was looking through some of my clips and this office is getting a little messy. So instead of just cleaning it like a normal person would, I just adjusted the mess that way and decided I wanted a more aesthetically pleasing background. So we are in front of my TBR shelf, which has all the good things. My current TBR, my future TBR, library books that I need to get to and put into TBRs, and books I started and have yet to finish that have been glaring at me for the past couple months. Down here is unread Indigenous lit. Up here are my new books that I plan on hauling. So that, like, if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, I am doing my fall book haul. I have not done a haul in a while. For you, I have hauled plenty of books and had the idea of making videos and putting it up for you, but these I'm noticing that if it gets any more than what it is now, I find it tedious, and editing me is just not having it, and so I scrapped the idea. So it's been a while. This is like obviously not all that I've gotten in the since my last book haul. I've gotten plenty of others, but like I said, had planned on posting it, but just refused to edit it, so scrap the idea. So we're gonna go with my fall book haul. I'm gonna put myself on a bit of a book buying ban for November. Hopefully, though already I'm like looking at the calendar going, when am I getting paid so I can purchase new books? We'll see how well that works out, just because there's a couple books in my new haul that that just really made me go, why did I buy this? So it'll be interesting. So let's just get to that. This is a work in progress because obviously this isn't working and I already had a casualty. Work in progress. Okay, but my first book I have gotten is Bespoutine by Margaret Rogerson. This is her newest release from this year. I remember pre-ordering this and I'm not sure what it's about. In all honesty, I know it has to do with religion in some way. So I believe we're following a main character who is a Grey Sister, a nun who cleanses the bodies so that the dead don't rise from the living. This particular character prefers the dead over the living, and particularly because they tend to whisper about her. Something happens. Her convent is attacked by possessed soldiers, and so our main character awakens an ancient spirit bound to a saint's relic. So I'm very curious about this. Margaret Rogerson, I have read Enchantment of Ravens as well as Sorcery of Thorns. They were both 3 stars for me, but I think about them both. I really did enjoy an Enchantment of Ravens. It's just the ending killed it for me. I never thought that the romance was insta-lovey, just because, like, I'll hear that's a lot of critique on that, and it's just because I know how long an oil painting takes, particularly of a portrait. So that to me, it wasn't bothersome, but I love the atmosphere of that. I also really enjoyed the atmosphere of Sorcery of Thorns, but at the same time it was another 3-star just because I thought the villain's motivation was dumb. But I did enjoy the villain ultimately, because that one in particular made me feel like I was suffocating with how the villain treated the protagonist. So I'm really curious about where Margaret Rogerson's writing is going. I'm hoping it's not going to be like some other authors where it's like their books are constantly kind of middle of the road for me in terms of rating. Like after 5 books or something, I'm just like, I don't know why I'm continuing to read this, or like that will steadily, their writing steadily declines, or there's just tropes that I'm realizing they repeat over and over again, and there's really no difference between characters. Jen Bennett. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, I'm excited for all these books, but like this one I'm very intrigued in. I kind of am disappointed with the cover. It's interesting, but it's at the same time, like, if you've seen Margaret Rogerson's other covers, which I believe is by the same illustrator. So this is adult as well, and I believe this is Margaret Rogerson's first venture into adult. Her other 2 have been YA. And the illustration is by Charlie Bowater. I'm not entirely sure if they're the ones that also did Enchantment of Ravens and Sorcery of Thorns, but it's like they both had similar styles in which it was very, these dynamic, almost like action, action illustrations that I really did enjoy. It had a really great detail. This one just feels very typical fantasy cover to me, and so I do enjoy the background of it, but like I almost wish there was something more dynamic about it. These next couple of books I got from my local bookstore. I have enjoyed being able to go back to my local bookstore and get books and just kind of like meander and look. We don't have a Barnes & Noble or anything big here. We used to have Borders before they went bankrupt and closed shop. I miss them dearly. Otherwise, our small local bookstore is called Northtown Books, and I really enjoy them. They're really fun, and I'm realizing it's like my little source of therapy. Just kind of get out and let my mind wander and let my eyes wander on books that seem interesting or look cool. But the first book I got from them was A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I had thought about actually subscribing to a book box in order to get that particular edition. However, that book box subscription company ended up posting some really kind of shitty things. Went and purchased this from my local bookstore, and I believe this is dark academia, this is YA, I believe this is queer. I'm not entirely, yeah. I saw Jessie from Bowties Books and Jan from Jan Agerton. They read this for their 24-hour Suffolkathon, and I love Jessie's opinions on books, and I'm finding that I'm really just heavily relying on that. There's like some booktubers that I watch, and it's just like, just for the fun of watching. BooksandLala is like that to me. There's not a whole lot of books that, so far anyway, there's like not a whole lot of books that we have like agreed upon so far. Jessie from Bowties Books, yes and no. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm finding that I do this. I'll kind of just latch onto a booktuber and go, oh, okay, and like get books that they recommend. And so Jessie's my current booktuber for that, and yeah, so I have A Lesson in Vengeance. One, that cover is just absolutely gorgeous, but I believe this is dark academia, this is queer. But that's all I really know about it. That's all I really want to know about it, and I'm hoping, I obviously hope I can get to all of these soon. Another one that I've seen, and actually I believe BooksandLala ended up saying something about this, but it's one of those ones that's just like I'm fairly interested, and that is his Hideous Heart, 13 of Edgar Allan Poe's most unsettling tales reimagined, including the original tales edited by Dahlia Adler. So Edgar Allan Poe has always been a curiosity to me, but when I tried reading him back in high school, I wasn't as interested, so I'm curious how I would feel about his writing now, ultimately, and with these retellings, I think that's a good way for me to do it. I know I was the goth kid in high school, and I was constantly making references, unbeknownst to me, to Edgar Allan Poe's writing, of just like Something Under the Floorboards, or just stuff like that, and my English teachers consistently kept thinking that I was gonna love Edgar Allan Poe, and at the time, I just wasn't interested, mostly because it was the teachers recommending it to me, and as far as I was concerned, any of the required reading was boring and dull, so why would I read something that they recommended to me? Yeah, I'm curious about this one. The title basically says it all. This is like the first time I'm actually looking to see like who's contributed to it, though. Kendar Blake, Rin Chapeko, Tiffany D. Jackson. Those are only, Emily Lloyd Jones. Those are the only ones I personally recognize. Another one I found that I immediately like snagged up because it's another recommendation from Jessie from Bowties and Books, The Girl with All the Gifts. Didn't know what this was about for the longest time until Jessie talked about it. And after they talked about it, I'm like, I want to get it. Every morning, Melanie waits in her cell to be collected for class. When they come for her, Sergeant Parks keeps his gun pointed at her while two of his people strap her into the wheelchair. She thinks they don't like her. She jokes she won't bite, but they don't laugh. From what I understand, Melanie is a zombie. I believe this is zombie-esque, which I haven't read in a while, and for some reason this year I'm very intrigued with like horror in general. This one is a more obscure one that I just kind of found within Northtown Books, but it is The Wolf's Curse by Jessica Vitalis. One, the cover, I love the cover. Otherwise, I believe it's either middle grade or it must be middle grade, mostly because this font is huge. Following a young boy and a wolf, I believe. The great white wolf is very, very old, and she is very, very tired. For hundreds of winters, she has searched for someone to take her place, but she is invisible to most people. In all these years, only 3 have seen her. One died young, one said no, one is still alive, a 12-year-old boy named Gage. Gage. Everyone in this village thinks Gage is a witch. He's been hiding half his life, all because he once saw the wolf. And right after that, the Lord Mayor's wife died. Now his only protector, his beloved grandpapa, is dead too. The wolf visits the boy again, this time with an offer. She can save him the pain of growing up. Now that he's all alone in the world, it may be the only way to escape the bounty on his head, if only his grandpapa's last words hadn't been, stay away from the wolf. So this one I believe I picked up because of this aspect of the wolf being able to save this kid from not growing up. It very much resonated with me in terms of reminding me of my brother, who was constantly not wanting to grow up. He had this constant fear of like not wanting to be an adult, but you just kind of remember him. So I realized why I don't shop at Target anymore. No. But I did find this book, which I'm really excited about because I keep seeing it all over BookTube, but I have yet to hear any reviews about it yet. And I'm hoping, because it was on a lot of people's October TBRs, that I will see it in wrap-ups. But that is The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I believe this is climate fiction or something. Yeah, I believe it's climate fiction, like climate fantasy, which is interesting. So witches have maintained the climate, their power peaking in the season of their birth, but their control is faltering as the atmosphere becomes more erratic. All hope lies with Clara, whose rare magic is tied to every season. That's all I want to know about that, because it sounds like amazing. And then we have my book of the month picks for, I believe, October. Yes, this is my October pick. So I ended up picking Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. I've heard of Colson Whitehead, but I don't believe I've read anything by them yet. I believe this is literary fiction. So we're following Carney, who is an upstanding salesman at a reasonably priced furniture shop. He and his wife Elizabeth are expecting their second child. They're currently living in a cramped apartment across from some subway tracks. Very few people know that he descends from uptown hoods and crooks, and his facade of normalcy is starting to crack. So that's all I really want to know about this before getting into it. I need to start reading my book of the month books, because looking at what I've read so far in October, I didn't read any, and I'm usually pretty good at reading at least 2 a month, which makes sense because I typically get 2 a month. So my second one for October was All of Us with Wings by Michelle Ruiz Keel, and that cover is just, there's so much detail and I really like it. And what that is adorable. What is going on? Why is there stingrays up in the air? I love the detail of this cover. We're following 17-year-old, I am going to mispronounce this and I apologize, Sochi is alone in San Francisco, running from her painful past, the mother who abandoned her, the man who betrayed her. Then one day she meets Payas, precocious 12-year-old who lives with her rock star family and one of the city's storybook Victorians. So she accepts a position as Payas live-in governess and quickly finds her place in the girl's tight-knit household, which operates on a free on a free love philosophy and easy warmth despite the band's growing fame. But on the night of the vernal equinox, as a concert after party rages in the house below, Sochi and Palace perform a riot girl ritual in good fun, accidentally summoning a pair of ancient beings bound to avenge the wrongs of Sochi's past. She would do anything to preserve her new life, but with the creatures determined to exact vengeance on those who've hurt her, no one is safe. So that sounds really cool. Next I have the second to the Scholomance, and second book in the Scholomance, The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. I read A Deadly Education last year and actually really enjoyed it, you know, besides the issue with the locks, which Naomi Novik has addressed, though I'm not the one that can accept the apology, but she has made efforts to make sure that it's not in future printouts, so that's pretty cool. I didn't mind so much of the other stuff, but again, it wasn't mine. I don't think it was my beef. My only thing is there was mention of smudging, and I wish she would have just used a different word, or even like went into detail about like what main character used to smudge, like the ethical ways that you can go about doing that. But I also get that this is a fantasy. So this is a fantasy series. It's dark academia, where there is a school that has been created for magic wielding people. The school was created in order to essentially save them and keep them in basically a safe bubble so that they can learn their magic without anyone being injured, but also so that they were safe, because there are monsters in the world that go after budding magic users, like they kill them. The only problem with that is that because all of them are in this school, the monsters have been trying to get in, and in A Deadly Education, basically I'm not explaining this well. The school itself can kill you. There's no teachers. It's up to you to learn. But there are multiple ways you can get killed in the school. But some would find it a better death than they find the risk worth it, as opposed to getting found by a monster. But all these monsters have gathered in the graduate hall for the last class, and typically there is something that cleans them out, but it broke like the first season or the first year the school was open, and so these monsters have slowly been collecting. So in the first book we see our protagonist, who I immediately forgot the name of. It doesn't tell me here either. But basically there are like alliances you can make, but it kind of shows like the privilege of class. I also have Walking the Clouds, an anthology of Indigenous science fiction. I'm really happy to finally get my hands on this. I've been looking at it in like my wish list for a while, and finally was just like, I'll buy it. So this is a first ever anthology of Indigenous science fiction, edited by Grace Dillon. And it has contributions from not only Native Americans, First Nations, but our Aboriginal, Australian, and New Zealand Maori authors, which is really cool. So this would be a great one to read for Indigathon. But I'm excited to get to this because we have a lack of representation in a lot of things, but like science fiction, I have yet to see any. So these next 4 books have been sent to me by Penguin, so thank you so much to them. The first being Notable Native People, 50 Indigenous Leaders, Dreamers, and Changemakers from Past and Present by Adrienne Keene. One gorgeous cover. I love the illustrations, but this is really cool because it does go into, like, who does it have? It has Jim Thorpe, Lilio Kalani, Princess Desiree Johnson, I apologize if I said that wrong, Wilma Mankiller, Tommy Orange, a bunch of people in here. I'm really excited. It's also a really good one, I think, for Indigathon. And I believe this came out this year. The next 3, Carrie, a memoir of survival on stolen land by Toni Jensen. I am, 1, really excited for that cover. 2, just really excited to have this because it was another one that I had constantly been looking at and have heard good things about. So that I'm excited for. I also have Dog Flowers by Danielle Geller, which is also a memoir, also a beautiful cover. Man, this camera picks up yellow better than it does here. So the camera makes it seem more yellow. It's actually more of like a like a dull mustard, but I like the way the camera is doing it. So this one, we were following Danielle Geller, whose mother dies of alcohol withdrawal during an attempt to get sober. Geller returns to Florida and finds her mother's life packed in 8 suitcases. Most are filled with clothes, except for the last one, which contains diaries, photos, and letters. A few undeveloped disposable cameras, dried sage, jewelry, and a bandana her mother wore on days she skipped washing her hair. So Geller is an archivist and a writer, uses the pieces of her mother's story to try to understand her mother's relationship to home and shared need to leave. So this sounds really entertaining. I love the name of it too, Dog Flowers? Is it the same as Dogwood Flowers? And then I also have There by Tommy Orange. I already have this and I've already read it. I really did enjoy it. Really read. So if I'm not going to Northtown Books, I'm typically getting most of my books from bookshop.org because it helps small businesses, much like Libro. I have links to that down in the description down below as well. And it's kind of fun just because they have curated lists of various degrees. So it's also a fun one just to kind of like browse through and look through books if you don't feel like don't feel like going anywhere in person, just because we are still in a pandemic. First one I found that I haven't heard of before is The Lost Book of Adana Moreau by Michael Zapata. So this is in 1929 in New Orleans. A Dominican immigrant named Adana Moreau writes a science fiction novel. The novel earns rave reviews and Adana begins a sequel. Then she falls gravely ill. Just before she dies, she destroys the only copy of the manuscript. Decades later in Chicago, Sol Drower is cleaning out his dead grandfather's home when he discovers a mysterious manuscript written by none other than Adana Moreau. With the help of his friend Javier, Sol tracks down an address for Adana's son in New Orleans, but as Hurricane Katrina strikes, they must head to the storm-ravaged city for answers. What results in a brilliantly layered masterpiece, an ode to home, storytelling, and possibly the parallel worlds. So yeah, one, cover, gorgeous. Two, really interesting premise. I'm really intrigued by this. So apparently it's a Kirby 2020 fiction reader. Fiction winner. I don't know what that means. The next one I have already read, which you will see, have seen in my wrap-up, my October wrap-up, but that is Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1 by James Tinian IV, Werther Deladera, and Miquel Muerto. This is a horror graphic novel that I enjoy the cover. Gotta love that cover. But basically there is a small town where the children are going missing or dying. Major content warning for death of children and graphic visuals of embodiment and death. So basically there's something in the shadows, something's stealing children, something's eating these children, and those that survive giving descriptions of things that other people aren't, they don't believe them. Until Erica Slaughter comes into town. She is the only one that seems to believe these children and is looking for this monster. She is a monster slayer. So, and there's obviously more to it than that, but that is intense. This was really a really fun read and like perfect for this spooky season. So I really enjoyed it and I can't wait to get more of the volumes. All right, last 3 books, and these first 2 are the ones that I'm going, why did I buy these? The first one is The Moonlight Child by Karen McQuestion. I really enjoyed this cover. I was really looking for spooky books. I remember looking for spooky books. I was buying something else and was like, let me just add that real quick because I only read the first paragraph of the synopsis, which sounded interesting enough, but I didn't read the second one, and after reading the rest of the synopsis, it makes me question if I really want to read this. Basically, on a cold January night, Sharon Lemke heads outside to see a lunar eclipse when she notices something odd at the house behind her backyard. Through her neighbor's kitchen window, she sees that what appears to be a little girl washing dishes late at night, but the Fleming family doesn't have a child that age. And even if they did, why would she be doing housework at this late hour? It would be easy for Sharon to let it go, but when 18-year-old Nikki, a former foster child, comes to live with Sharon, she notices suspicious activity at the Fleming's house as well. When calling social services doesn't result in swift action, the two decide to investigate on their own. Yeah, It's none of your business. It sounds like this whole book sounds like it is just two women that need to mind their own fucking business, and like, why the fuck call social services? So yeah, I'm already regretting buying this book. Hence why I'm kind of wanting to put myself on a book buying ban in November because of this one. But that cover is gorgeous. I don't know what mood or what made me think that I would enjoy this, but after reading that synopsis, when it got to me, I'm like, oh no. This one I found on bookshop.org, and it was one of those ones too that I was looking through a list, thought it was an interesting cover, but now that I'm reading the synopsis, I'm like, is that something I'd be interested in? And that is The Madonna of Notre Dame by Alexis Rajanou. This is a translated work, and it's translated by Catherine Gregor. But basically, this is supposedly a thrilling novel shedding light on good and evil. 50,000 believers and photo-hungry tourists jam into Notre Dame Cathedral on August 15th to celebrate the Feast of the Assumption. The next morning, a stunningly beautiful young woman, clothed all in white, kneels at prayer in a cathedral-side chapel. But when an American tourist accidentally bumps against her, her body collapses. She has been murdered. The autopsy reveals disturbing details. Police investigators and priests search for the killer as they discover other truths about guilt and redemption in this soaring Paris refuge for the lost, the damned, and the saved. The suspect is a disturbed young man obsessed with the Virgin Mary who spends his days hallucinating in front of a Madonna. But someone else knows the true killer of the white-clad daughter of Algerian immigrants. This thrilling novel illuminates the shadowy corners of the world's most famous cathedral, shedding light on good and evil with suspense, compassion, and wry humor. Okay, now that so I read this synopsis right after reading this one when it arrived, and I think as I was reading this one, I'm like, oh no, this is like, I did it again. Put yourself on a book ban. But now reading that through again, it actually seems really interesting. I have mixed feelings about Notre Dame, just because I have been there myself. It is really gorgeous. Ultimately, I find churches really gorgeous to an extent. I mean, particularly if they're like Notre Dame. I get it, but when it comes to religion, I tend to shy away from it just because I don't understand it. I also there's like a bad history, and the fact that when the Notre Dame ended up catching fire, millions and millions of people ended up donating to fix it, but yet we cannot get people to pay attention to the Amazon rainforest or all these natural disasters that are happening like to Haiti or other parts of the world to pay attention so that we can rebuild and help these people. But they're more concerned about Notre Dame. See, there's a lot of these I haven't seen on BookTube, so that's also what part of it, what intrigues me about them, is because I haven't heard of them before, and I'm curious about them. And it's like, okay, if I haven't heard about them, have you heard about them? And maybe it'll intrigue you and inspire you to pick something up that isn't necessarily like favorite on BookTube. Okay, my last book for this book haul. It just came in today. I'm really excited about it because it's another one I haven't heard anything about from anyone. And that is The Crowfolk, The Witches of Woodville 1 by Mark Stay. Cover, like, phenomenal, gorgeous, love it. War rages in Europe, but in a quiet village in rural Kent, there is another battle to be won. Faye Bright has always known she was different, but when she discovers her late mother's diary, she realizes why. Full of spells, incantations, runes, and recitations, which is notebook, and Faye has inherited her mother's abilities. Just in time, too, the Crowfolk are coming, and they want that book. Led by the charismatic Pumpkinhead, their strange magic threatens Faye and the villagers, armed with little more than her mom's word, the grudging help of two bickering witches, and some aggressive church bell ringing. Faye will find herself on the front lines of a war with demonic forces. I believe this is set in June 1940, rationing, blackouts, and witchcraft. So if the angle is different, okay, hold on. It's because I thought I was done, and I'm not. But I did find one more that I forgot to mention, and that is Sacred Smokes by Theodore Van Alst Jr. And basically we're following growing up in a gang in the city can be dark. Growing up Native American in a gang in Chicago is a whole different story. This book takes a trip through the unexplored part of Indian country, an intense journey that is full of surprises, shining a light on the interior lives of people those whose intellectual and emotional concerns are often overlooked. This dark, compelling, occasional, inappropriate, and often hilarious linked story collection introduces a character who defies all stereotypes about urban life and Indians. He will be in readers' heads for a long time to come. So Theodore C. Van Alst Jr. is an associate professor and the chair of Native American Studies at the University of Montana, is a creative editor for Transmotion, the online journal for postmodern Indigenous studies. His fiction and photography have been widely published. He is also the editor for The Faster, Redder Road, the best un-American stories of Stephen Graham Jones. So that is my fall book haul. I will not be holding those up. If you have read any of these, let me know what your thoughts were down in the comments down below. Hopefully we'll be able to start doing these a bit more often so I'm not overwhelmed and decide not to edit a video and not post it. Let me know your thoughts on those. If you've made it this far, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you have yet to do so already, hit the subscribe button. I'm on multiple other platforms: Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, Storygraph. Though Storygraph I am having a hard time keeping up with once again, so I need to start doing that. Otherwise, I will see you in another video very soon. Chew!